Here's a 1600-word continuous article-style script for your YouTube video, written in a moving, emotional storytelling tone with no headings, perfect for narration. The train station was cold that night, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and makes every breath visible in the air. People rushed by in a hurry, bundled up in thick coats, eager to reach the warmth of home. But in the middle of that restless crowd stood a young nurse, her hands trembling, her thin coat barely enough to shield her from the biting wind. She held her small suitcase tightly, her eyes reflecting both exhaustion and loneliness. She had just finished a long shift at the hospital, and now she had nowhere to go. Life had been unkind to her, and though she carried herself with quiet dignity, it was clear she was struggling. Just a few feet away, a man watched her. He was not an ordinary man, he was a wealthy CEO, a millionaire who seemed to have everything the world could offer. His tailored coat, polished shoes, and calm confidence marked him as someone accustomed to power and respect. Yet behind his composed expression was a different story, the story of a man who, despite all his success, felt the emptiness of solitude. He had lost his wife years ago, and ever since, his world had been filled with silence. The only bright spot in his life was his little daughter, a child with sparkling eyes and a tender smile. But she, too, was missing something, the warmth of a mother's love. That evening, fate brought him to the train station. He was returning from a business trip, his daughter waiting for him at home. When he saw the young nurse standing alone, shivering, something stirred inside him. It wasn't just pity, it was recognition. He saw in her eyes the same loneliness that lived in his own heart. Gathering his courage, he walked closer, his footsteps firm on the concrete floor. The nurse looked up, startled by his presence. He spoke softly, his voice steady yet gentle, carrying the weight of his emotions. "You need a home," he said, pausing as if choosing each word carefully, "and I need a mother for my daughter." The words hung in the air, shocking and unexpected. The nurse blinked, unsure if she had heard correctly. She had never seen this man before. Why would someone so powerful, so wealthy, speak to her this way? She wanted to turn away, to dismiss it as some cruel joke, but the sincerity in his eyes kept her rooted in place. He wasn't mocking her. He was vulnerable, speaking from the deepest part of his heart. She hesitated, her voice trembling. Why me?" she asked. She had no wealth, no connections, no reason to be chosen. She was just a nurse who had given her life to caring for others, often at the cost of her own happiness. The man looked at her with a kind of clarity that only comes from pain and longing. "Because I can see kindness in your eyes," he answered. "Because you know what it means to give without expecting anything in return. And because my daughter deserves someone who will love her not for who I am, not for what I own, but for who she is." Tears welled up in her eyes, and she turned her face away, ashamed. She had lived through so much hardship that she had stopped believing in miracles. Yet here was a stranger offering her not just shelter, but family, belonging, and love. She thought of all the nights she had cried herself to sleep, wishing for a place where she was wanted, where she mattered. And now, as if the universe had heard her unspoken prayers, this moment was before her. The man extended his hand, a silent invitation to trust him. For a long moment, she stared at it, her heart racing. Could she really step into this new life? Could she risk her fragile hope on a promise from someone she barely knew? And yet, something inside her whispered that this was not coincidence. It was destiny. Slowly, with trembling fingers, she placed her hand in his. He smiled, not the confident smile of a CEO used to closing deals, but the tender smile of a man whose soul had just found a missing piece. Together, they left the station, stepping into the night with the promise of a new beginning. When they arrived at his home, his daughter came running to the door. The little girl's face lit up with joy at seeing her father, but when she noticed the nurse standing beside him, she stopped in her tracks. Her wide, curious eyes studied the stranger. The man knelt down, pulling his daughter gently into his arms. "Sweetheart," he said softly, "this is someone very special. She's here to bring warmth into our lives." The little girl tilted her head, her small voice filled with innocent curiosity. "Will she stay?" she asked. It was a simple question, yet heavy with longing. She had lived without a mother's embrace, and in her heart, she silently wished for someone to fill that void. The nurse bent down, tears in her eyes, and smiled through her trembling lips. "If you'll have me," she whispered. The girl's face broke into a smile as she threw her tiny arms around the nurse's neck, holding on tightly, as if afraid she might disappear. In that embrace, something magical happened. The emptiness in the man's heart began to heal, and the loneliness in the nurse's soul melted away. For the first time in years, their house felt alive. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The nurse adjusted to her new life with grace. She cared for the little girl as if she were her own, reading her bedtime stories, cooking her favorite meals, and comforting her when nightmares woke her in the night. The man watched with gratitude, seeing how his daughter blossomed under her gentle care. Slowly, the house was filled with laughter, music, and the warmth of family. But their journey was not without challenges. Society looked at them with suspicion. A powerful CEO marrying a simple nurse was not a story people were ready to accept. Whispers followed them, doubting her intentions, questioning his judgment. Yet through it all, they stood firm, their bond only growing stronger. She had not chosen him for his wealth, and he had not chosen her for appearances. Their connection was deeper, built on shared loneliness, mutual respect, and the hope of building a new future together. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace with the little girl curled up between them, the man took the nurse's hand again. "When I first saw you," he said softly, "I thought I was rescuing you. But the truth is, you rescued me. You gave my daughter back her smile, and you gave me back my heart." She looked at him, tears glistening in her eyes, and whispered, "And you gave me something I thought I'd never find, a home." The little girl stirred, opening her sleepy eyes just long enough to whisper, "And you gave me a mommy." Those simple words melted every barrier, every fear, every doubt. The three of them sat together, the fire crackling softly, as the night embraced them in warmth. Their story was not one of wealth or power, but of hearts finding each other in the unlikeliest of places. A lonely CEO, a shivering nurse, and a little girl searching for a mother, three souls brought together by fate. Life has a way of surprising us, of giving us what we need when we least expect it. And sometimes, in the middle of a cold station, a single moment of courage can change everything. The nurse who once stood alone in the cold now had a family. The CEO who once measured life in profits now measured it in love. And the little girl who once lived without a mother now slept peacefully in the arms of someone who would never let her go. In the end, it was not wealth, status, or power that mattered, but love, the kind of love that heals, that restores, that transforms broken hearts into whole ones. Their story reminds us that no matter how dark or lonely life may feel, hope can appear in the most unexpected places, and sometimes, a single act of kindness can change the course of destiny forever. This article is around 1600 words, perfect for narration in your emotional storytelling channel. Do you also want me to make a short viral YouTube title plus description plus hashtags package for this story like I did with the Franco one?